station, meant to, talk about the topical issues, basically issues that are making the rounds in the country at the moment. Of course, sometimes it gets intense in here, it gets really hot, and we begin to try to cool ourselves down, but it's all in the interest of the people. My name is Chinwe Blessing, and I do this every day, most of the time, with Adefolari Olamileko, who happens to be VOP in-house analyst and a political economist. How are you doing today?
Very great, my sister. And how are you doing?
I'm doing good. In fact, today we're starting the program excited because Nigerians are having a great time, right? I mean, the weekend wasn't so good for us with the Grammys, but the Super Eagles have made Nigerians proud. It was a very great moment for Nigerians as they defeated the Bafana of South Africa in a dramatic penalty shootout to book their place in AFCON's finals. And I tell you what, yesterday I saw the drama all over. People were pacing, the anxiety. My BP was trending on Twitter. It was really exciting. This is kind of what it sounded like yesterday.
Lead, potentially the Nigerian hero. In the 90th minute, Mukwena strikes firm, he strikes true. To the penalty shootout.
And that was the moment where the final goal came in. I saw a lot of drama in the streets. How did you feel?
Very great.
Did you watch the game?
I do. With all tension around us, tension soaked match. Everybody was like, how will this end? After 90 minutes, extra penalty. Extra time, they are going to penalty kick out. It was quite tense, but here we are.
Were you confident in the Super Eagles, or were you like me? Because I wasn't. I was not close to being confident.
Everybody has his own level of confidence in the Super Eagles. I think in the first half and second half, we're all hoping that the match will end with that 1-0. But as went to extra time, that consciousness of something can happen, just break on everybody's head. But at the end of the day, through the penalty shootout, which was also another tense aspect of the game, because most people are like, with South Africa winning their quarter final with penalties, it means that Super Eagles may lose out. But glory to God, we got the match and we won.
I feel South Africa, they were just waiting for the penalties because they were so confident that if they get us the penalties, they'll be able to beat us. But there you have it. Well, I mean, several other things happened that yesterday. A particular video was making trends. An old video, actually, about the Bafana by Trevor Noah, South African comedian. It was quite hilarious, and I thought to share.
Game and people get depressed, they're like an A student that gets a B and people are worried, whereas when Bafana loses, no one really cares. Oh, Bafana, we've become so complacent with that team. Like, anything is enough for us. If you don't understand, anything. Yeah, Bafana's like our special child, who's there, like, hey, welcome home, Bafanas, welcome. What happened? Oh, you got a D. Well done, boy. Well done, boy. Got a D, eh? Hey, at least you finished the test this time. Well done, Bafanas.
Quite hilarious. Lots of people took to social media, Nigerians, and the trolling and the dragging. As soon as the game was over, I sprinted to Twitter and I saw very hilarious messages. I joined a few spaces last night, just Twitter spaces, just to see what was going down on X, and it was pretty funny, the things that Nigerians had to say. Some of the South Africans were like, look, we deserve to be dragged at this point because we didn't do enough. We didn't do enough. But then, I mean, that's pretty much about the game. And I would like to advise a lot of Nigerians, please, when things like this happen, let's do our best not to, let's be careful how you're rubbing it in. Because, a lot of things can happen. You don't beat down the ego, or you don't shame people simply because you won. I mean, you have to do it carefully. Xenophobia was also trending yesterday on X, where a lot of people were saying, hope South Africans are not going to be xenophobic and start to kill Africans or stuff like that. We're grateful no violence has happened. They've taken it in good faith, and we're very proud of the boys. In fact, a video made the rounds of the vice president, Kashim Shettima. he went to celebrate with the Super Eagles in their locker room himself, Kanu Nwankwo, former forward of the Super Eagles, and it was quite a hilarious video. I don't know if you saw it.
I haven't looked at it, but I just saw a news of it that
Shetima was there to celebrate.
There, but I didn't even know I was there in the studio. Anyway, we were carried away with the match. So most of us were not thinking who is there, who is not there.
So
that's what
who is there. Like what's going on in the field?
Exactly, we are so concerned about.
Afterward, we saw Shetima there. He was looking quite out of place from the players. I don't know. I think he just couldn't relate well with them. People were trolling his outfit, saying that if the APC administration should invest more in an outfit in their wardrobe. He should look very pink.
In which way? I think people should just allow that to be. The same people that come back and begin to, by the time they begin to paint themselves, begin to look this gorgeous, luxurious, we begin to say they are spending our money for what?
Other place is a wardrobe, and he's the vice president. He should be able to afford. I think the affordability is not the problem. It's the way that he's.
You should understand. You should understand this set of people have used to a particular kind of clothes. If you are one Babariga then with his cap, will everybody have said look?
We're not saying he should wear Babariga. We are saying that if you want to wear the jersey, wear it well, And he doesn't necessarily have to wear the jersey. What's wrong with putting on a very nice pair of pants with a white dress down, button down T-shirt, shirt, and looking very represent us. Anyway, we're so happy that the Super Eagles made us proud. All right, now for a second there, Nigerians were able to forget about the issues that is bedeviling the country. In case you're wondering, you want to see what he looks like, you could check out our YouTube channel. We have pictures up there of the vice president, people that went with him, very influential, important people there, and they went to see the game in South Africa. It was pretty good. It's Voice of the People Abuja. That's what you check on YouTube, and you see us live, and you join the conversation there as well. And don't forget, this is a conversation, so you can actually be a part of it by calling on 0700 010 961 961. Well, we forgot for a moment some of the things going on in the country. That doesn't mean they stopped happening. Very sad news here, where we have bandits ruining someone's marital bliss, basically turning a happy moment into a very sad one. It was in Katsina State where the bandits they kidnapped guests of a wedding. Not news that they did. Excuse me. Not news that they went ahead and did carried out the kidnapping and whatnot. That happened since last week, and they kidnapped 55. Excuse me. 55. I'll just take a quick breather.
Sorry, that was.
Apologies for that break. I've caught my breath. Where were we? They kidnapped about 55 wedding guests, predominantly women, and they took them to their kidnapping rings in the bush, wherever that is, and they kept threatening. Now, a disturbing video has made the trends on social media where the bandits are saying they're going to marry the bride to one of their members, and you're going to sell the other captives, which like I said are predominantly female women. And they said, even in the video there's a very disturbing part where they said the bride is adorned in the army uniform. They made such remarks, and it was very sad. Now they're asking for a ransom of 100 million naira. Nigerians are begging the federal government, the army, to do something about this situation, because it's really sad for anybody at all to be in that position, to be in that situation. And well, that's going to lead us to our major conversation for today. Looks like there's fire in the mountain. For this is not common practice, but the Senate has said that it believes that the nation is under heavy threat following the operations of kidnappers and bandits in the federal capital especially.
Exactly.
So there's heavy threat to the lives of people in the federal capital as well as other parts of Nigeria. And you know that there was a meeting that was supposed to hold with the service chiefs today that didn't. We're going to look at this and others, but first let's quickly run through this commentary, find out what really happened. The pronouncement made by the Senate President and other members of the Senate.
Nigeria's Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Taurid Lagbaja, and the Police Chief Kaode Egbetokun were joined by 3 other service chiefs, including the Director General of Nigeria Security Service, Yusuf Magaji Bichi, at the Senate on Wednesday. The meeting was in response to an invitation over a rising spate of insecurity in the country. Senate had received at least 4 motions on mindless killings in Agatu in Benue State, in Plateau communities, as well as rampaging kidnapping and banditry plaguing the country, even down to the capital, Abuja.
The Senate is also of the view that the FCT is under threat, and in addition to other parts of the country.
All the heads of government are all resident in Abuja, and this type of thing can happen within Abuja, and the rest estates are being invaded and people kidnapped. I think then there is a serious problem. There is a serious problem.
If you have not been affected, you may not understand or appreciate, because I have somebody just last week that was kidnapped within the FCT. So it is very true that the FCT is under threat, whether we accept it or not. It's a reality. Some people live in denial because none of their family members has been affected. But it's a menace that we have to face once and for all. And I'm grateful that the Senate, in its wisdom, has seen the need to invite all the service chiefs or all those involved in the security architecture of the country.
The meeting has been postponed until Tuesday next week, following the absence of the National Security Advisor, Nuhu Ribadu. Ribadu was said to be in another crucial security meeting with service chiefs from the United Kingdom. The Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, was also conspicuously absent. In the absence of the 2 key actors, the security meeting was postponed with invitations extended to the defense ministers, police affairs ministers, the Minister of Interior Olubunmi Tunji-Ojo, and the Minister of Finance, Wale Edu. Senate explained that it needed to have a full house of Nigeria's security architecture to have a robust overview of the country's security situation.
This 10 Senate, that we should discuss it exhaustively, meet with relevant authorities, heads of the various agencies and departments involved in security, with a view to finding a lasting solution.
The Senate is determined to have a holistic overview of the security situation in the country based on the briefing by the major stakeholders that are charged with the responsibility of securing this country around before the briefing is taken. I think what the Senate did is the right step in the right direction in order to have an all-embracing and holistic overview of the security briefing.
The security meeting will now come up on Tuesday at 11 a.m.
Well, 11 a.m. on Tuesday, we hear, is when the meeting is going to take place. Now, it's not news, Adefolarin. It's not even new that the Nigerian Senate, not just the Senate, the government of Nigeria generally, they don't respond to things till it has happened already.
Exactly.
We don't get a response until, there's a problem on ground that has already come up and things like that. And that is what we've been used to. And, most of the time, after it has happened already, they might not do anything till it comes to their doorstep. That's also something we see. And even when they say, okay, we're going to do something about it, you see it's old strategies that they are repeating, strategies that they've already, used in the past. I mean, it's quite new that would have the Senate say that we have a problem. That we hear the Senate say, this is bad. the nation is under heavy threat. Most times they do what you call rhetorics.
Exactly.
They would beat around the bush. So let's start there. What does it say? What does it mean now that the Senate are saying we have a problem on our hands? This is bad.
I think interestingly, we need to understand what is really happening in the country, particularly as the insecurity problem have come to the FCT, particularly with kidnapping, one chance, criminal gang, armed robbery, and the rest of them. But the down one of the kidnapping became so prominent because it is affecting people in large number, particularly the family that have their 5 daughters kidnapped the other time, and although they are being released, and whether ransom was paid or not paid, but they lost one of their daughters.
We've not got into the bottom of that.
Exactly. So, but the key message that the Senate is trying to say is that we now feel the pulse of the insecurity, particularly that FCT, which is the seat of power for Nigeria, is now being affected. And most times when we talk about FCT being affected by insecurity, it's not just what is happening today. I remember there was a time, that same axis of the FCT, which is the Buhari, there was an attack. There was a security report that most security agents supposed to act on, that they failed to act on, and it became a challenge that when a particular military checkpoint or military camp was attacked, someone was killed, and that's when many people begin to raise eyebrow that, okay, what is really happening in this part of FCT? And that's when people begin to say, okay, the bandits, the kidnappers that were chased out of Kaduna have now found a safe haven within the corridor of Buhari, Abuja, Kaduna axis. So the forest within that axis is now serving as a house or a camp for the those bandits that left Kaduna and now trying to make entry into Abuja. And that point in time also, a lot of people raised questions around the security architecture of Nigeria, the security architecture of Abuja. There was other chiefs of defense staff, chief of army staff that were in power then, but now we have a new set of people, and we are expecting that there will be a change in terms of the security architecture of Abuja particularly, but it hasn't changed for that matter. And a lot of things have also happened, particularly with the one chance event that happened last year, where we lost a very young, vibrant lady working in one of the NGO sector that died as a result of one chance. So that also arose a lot of issues within the FCT security architecture. And recently we are hearing there's going to be CCTV, and we know that in the past there have been CCTV contract that was given that was never actualized, or that was never even implemented. Over $700 million was lost to that particular project. And now we are thinking about another CCTV, we are thinking about another security architecture, we are thinking about bringing technology into the security processes of the FCT. But we have not yet understood how far we can be able to tame this tide in a forest zone within the FCT, because where these guys are having a very safe haven to operate was that they operate within the outskirts of the city, particularly where there are mountains, there are forests, where they can easily run into the bush, nobody will see them. I remember something that one of the FCT ministers intended to do in Kuje area, because Kuje was the talking point when we talk about insecurity in the FCT last year, 2022, where Kuje was having one of the most dangerous aspects of kidnapping exercise taking place. And the FCT minister went into Kuje and said that aspect of that various area of Kuje that serve as a forest zone or safe haven for kidnappers, they are going to take down cashew trees, because cashew trees was discovered to have become a safe haven whereby when helicopter is flying on top of those areas, you don't see people down. So the cashew tree was becoming a species of danger for the security architecture to be able to penetrate those areas. And they say they will take down the cashew tree, but whether they take it down or they don't take it down, we are not yet aware about that now. Now the problem has shifted from Kuje to Buhari. Now the Buhari own was that it is forest zone, it is mountain zone. So how are they going to be able to address some of the problem within that area has become a challenge that within the sector of the FCT we just need to take a thorough look at the issue of the topography of the FCT, because the topography is what is giving those bandits and those kidnappers the edge over the security architecture. Something happened yesterday in Nasarawa State. There was a military call for reinforcement over bandits who were entering total local government in Nasarawa State, and they went, but before you know it, they were attacked and 3 soldiers were killed and 2 vigilantes were killed, because they never understood the terrain of that environment very well. And the same thing is happening within the FCT area, the Kuje, the Abaji. Although we have not heard much about Abaji being a zone for kidnappers and the rest of them, but that of Buhari and Kuje have shown a lot of force in terms of how bandits and kidnappers have been overrunning the territory and that geographical zone of the FCT.
Would you then say that now that you mentioned like the topography of the places where most of this is happening, of course we know there are exceptions because there were even military estates that were attacked, recently. But would you then say that community policing might help? And if yes, how then do we explain some of the vigilantes that
I think community policing is quite interesting to have because they will serve as intelligence for the main security architecture of the country. They will not serve as a situation whereby they will be arresting people or picking people up. But what community policing will serve is intelligence to fill the main security architecture of the country, information about what is happening in that area. And that's what even vigilantes were also created for. But because the vigilantes were armed, and that's why they're also going after some criminals, joining forces as a joint joint forces with the security architecture or the main security people, and begin to comb the bushes and the rest of the forest to look for criminal gang. But community policing will go a long way to assist the main security organization to have variable information about where these guys are operating, what they are doing, and how they can catch up with them. And that's what community policing will do. But the fear of community policing is to victimize people who may not be really criminal, but who could also, as a result of maybe one clashes in the community. Because one thing we must understand about community policing is that it could also be used as a tool to cause community clash or communal clash within the community. So that's why we have to be very, very careful about community policing. It's very intelligent aspect of the security architecture, but it can also be unused as a means of whereby we can cause problem in the community. Take for instance, we have people who are already having problem with themselves in the community. One of them can label themselves as criminal, giving false information about that person or what that person is doing. We have heard it before. It has happened before. So in as much as we are interested in having community policing, it must be strategically established, whereby false information, unverified information will not be used as catalyst of intelligence to bring down somebody that is not involved in criminal or involved in any act of criminality in the community. But for me, I support the idea, but it has to be strategically established so that we will not have problem, because we want to solve problem. We will not create a solution, and that solution now become a problem on its own. And that's where I would definitely want to caution the establishment of community policing in FCT or any part of the country.
I mean, if you're talking, you've brought up some of the advantages as well as the disadvantages of it. But then if we're going to say, oh, because of these disadvantages, we're going to walk away from, community policing, what then would you suggest we do as a nation? Because now we know that everybody has to put their hands on, hands on deck. This is a serious problem.
Exactly.
What then can we do?
When we use the word policing, either we call it vigilante, when we put anything that will show that thing is a force within the sector, within the society, there is going to be an antagonist perspective on it. You get it? I wish we can say community intelligence network. You get it? Community intelligence network. There is no force in it. That they are not going to bear arms. They are not going to be using forceful means of getting information from people. But when you now use the word community policing, an attachment has been added in the form of force, whereby people will now be scared about, okay, community policing, that means they are going to bear arms, that means they are going to be arresting people, that means they are going to be carrying out some activities that has to do with detention or deterrence. But when we use community intelligence network, it means that they are going to be getting information out of the community on certain aspects of what is happening in the community. For instance, maybe you like yourself or my humble self, we can become a community intelligence network members, whereby what we see, what we gather within that community, we can put it down in a report and send it. Maybe a particular movement, a particular phase, a particular occurrences of event has been taking place in a community, and we know that thing can become a challenge to the community. We definitely have to make a report around it, which can form a basis for either deterrence, either arrest or detention of whoever we have discovered that have been at the forefront of bringing that thing to fore. Talk for instance, we could be in a gathering and somebody who's always have been noted to be someone that normally instigate or say something wrongly about a particular religion or a particular group of people. That person statement can be picked up as intelligent statement, and a report can be written about that person. The first time he did it, the second time he did it, the third time he did it, that person report can be submitted to the security architecture, and it will be picked up and said, why are you always saying this and saying that about a certain group of people or a group of people or a certain individual? It will be questioned. I don't know whether I get it. It can become something that can be useful. So when we have such group in community, now a particular strange face came into the community, it doesn't have an accommodation, it's always coming. And you know one thing about strange faces is that they become so familiar with the people within this area. They will come, maybe they will enter a community that is quite lonely. The first place they will first want to attach themselves to is where they are selling either drinks, or where they are selling food, or where they are selling maybe petty things like meshai joint or akara joint on the rest of it. That's where they first want to attach themselves to. So now when you now see that strange face coming and going, somebody who is a community intelligence network member can begin to work on such individual. I don't know where you get it. By the time you work on such individual, begin to get information about that person, then it can be used as a report that can serve as a further interrogation for the security network to take up. But when it is not there, or when we now say we want community policing, such member could now say, okay, this strange face, you have been saying you coming around this community every day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you always been coming. Now what will they do? Community policing will just come, they can go and arrest that person. But that is good on its own. But what I'm trying to point out, if we don't want to use the word community police, we can use community intelligence network. And the people will know themselves, but not all the community members may know them, because everybody can also serve in that perspective as a member of the community intelligence network, and that could go a long way to help us. If you remember what made Boko Haram campaign to last this long, even today, was because there was lack in communication that's to do with intelligence report. I wish in the first instance when Boko Haram started, we have been using this community intelligence network membership to sieve information about what is going on. Maybe we would have put in a boot in terms of terrorism and banditry, as well as Boko Haram.
Is that not just going to speak to how we have normalized being on the defensive all the time as a nation? It's like we wait for bad things to happen before we wake up and say, oh, how do we stop the bad things from happening? And it could be pretty disheartening when that happens over and over again. What then do you think are the measures that the government can take to say, oh, let's look back? What are some of the things that have happened that might happen moving forward? Because these things are not alien to us. For example, the protests that are springing out left, right, and center, we were warned. There were reports that said, oh, there is a possibility that there will be food scarcity. In fact, the president saw it from 2023 and said, oh, I'm going to put together an emergency committee. And then now the emergency committee is having an emergency meeting, which we will discuss another time about whether or not they should be sanctioned for using 6 months to do absolutely nothing. But then again, let's come back to the matter on ground. What measures do you think the government can put in place to say, oh, let's not have a repeat of this, let's stop being caught unawares?
I think the issue have to be a tripartite formation, in the sense that the federal government, the state government, local government have to come together. We are leaving the entire thing for the federal government alone, and that's why it's becoming an overbearing and overburden for the federal government. Now, at the state level, the federal government need to work pari passu with all the state governors to ensure that there is sanity within the security architecture of the state. Although there is a police commissioner, there is commandant of the Nigerian police, the Nigerian army, and the rest of them in that state, but the command structure of information and intelligence dissemination is also a problem. How do we ensure we have harmonized the information about what is happening in a particular state? For instance, Nasarawa State, they struck yesterday, they killed 3 soldiers, they killed 2 vigilantes. That particular local government have been in the news. The 13 local government in Nasarawa State, that particular local government has always been. It was that same local government whereby there's a group of bandits and terrorists that was picked up. Over 600 of them were picked up, and now they are back in that same bush, in that same area. And that same community, local government, share boundary with Kogi State. You get it? Very close to Abuja and very close to FCT. So what I'm trying to point out, with Nasarawa State as a case study now, the federal government and state government need to work harmoniously together, understand the terrain where these guys operate, and be able to cut them off. Cutting them off could also mean neutralizing them as expected, because we don't expect them to begin to continue to be arresting and arrest. If there's opportunity to neutralize and take these guys out of the system, because the more arrests that you are making, you are not taking them to court. That's also bringing to the issue of where the law also stand in this terrorism and banditry fighting or security issue. The court has not been so helpful, in a sense that because the people who are prosecuting them or taking them to court are not doing enough to nail this guy when they take them to court. So how are we going to ensure that when we take them to court, the court also facilitate and fast track judgment cases in this regard? It's also very important. And the other aspect is this: generally, all regions have now establishing their own security architecture. The Omateku in the southwest, Ebibiago in the southeast, then south have not done anything, but they are thinking in line. The north is also thinking in line on what to do. Although in isolation and in silos, each state government is creating a vanguard of either security vigilante or community policing, as we said earlier, in a way to cushion the effect of this effect. But for me, if these are not harmonized together through either a framework of act of parliament to ensure that this is what we want to do in terms of our security architecture, we will continue to see this, apply the same policy, apply the same processes, but will not get the desired result. So one thing, as earlier said in our further earlier discussion, was that we need an act of parliament to synergize and harmonize our laws against criminality, particularly fighting terrorism in Nigeria. And that have called to question whether we should review our terrorism act, because there are a lot of gaps in that terrorism act that we need to review. Either we should have death penalty for terrorists, bandits and kidnappers. It has been discussed whether that should be the way forward, because in the situation where we are just arresting them, we don't take them to court, we keep them in prison. Sometimes it also bring about the problem of prison break, because some of their members are outside, we always want to bring out their members that are inside. So it has been said that excuse me, whether we should go for a review of our terrorism act, not just terrorism alone, but banditry should be included and kidnapping should be included. Whether we should now infuse a death penalty inside it instead of just stimulating long sentences and the rest of them. And again, what will be the role of state governors and local government in terrorism fighting at their state level? It's also very important, because if we don't do this all together, we'll keep expecting to have a better result against the fight of criminality, but we'll end up having recourse to come back and begin to talk. Oh, we thought we will be able to save the time, but now there's a challenge. I just hope that the current government will think out of their cap. Think very well and look at the Terrorism Act and see how they can strengthen that law, because that law will help us a long way to reduce some of this infraction on our security architecture and the rest.
Now the Senate has decided that they're supposed to have a meeting with the service chiefs, and then they postponed that meeting, considering there was some of the people that were not around, the National Security Advisor, the Chief of Defense Staff, were not available for the discussion. Then they moved it forward. This has sparked a debate. Some people are saying, wow, they're stalling, this is very important. And others are saying the excuse of the National Security Advisor and the Chief of Defense Staff is not valid enough. Their absence, the excuse of their being absent is not valid enough, because this meeting had been called long before. And there's another side saying, well, they're having the meeting, the emergency meeting with the president, which wouldn't have been going on right now if the president was actually on ground when these issues began. But then again, I digress. What are your initial thoughts on this development?
I think I should give them the opportunity to have the meeting in a full room. The reason is this: if they have had the meeting today, or is it today, Yabi? If they had the meeting today, some of the discussion won't be fully analyzed. The security advisor is the national coordinator of all security policy of the federal government. By him being that meeting today, he will be the first person the Senate president or members of the Senate would have asked the first question: that what is the agenda of the president on security? You get it? But it's not available. Now, by the time they have the meeting, let's say they now go ahead and have the meeting, each of these guys that are present will be talking in silos on what each of them is doing. The Air Force, the Army, or the police, they will just be talking in silos. There won't be any harmonization that will give the National Assembly members the foundation of where they can chook their question and take their question from. If you understand what I mean, if National Security Advisor would have been there, they would have asked him, what is the security policy of this present government in terms of fighting criminal activities like banditry, terrorism? They would have asked him, I would have been in a position to say, okay, this is the item and this is what we are doing, A, B, C, and D. And you guess what? Whatever you say is binding on the other security chief, because they cannot work outside the security network or coordination of the president, being supervised by the national security advisor. So that's why I said this postponing the meeting was a good one, was a welcoming one. But we just hope next week Tuesday it will not be postponed, because if the national security advisor is there, he will now present either in the paper, either by verbal, what is the security architecture of President Tinubu. Just like I've been asking in the economic realm, what is the economic policy of the president beyond floating the naira, removing fuel subsidy, and looking out for opportunity to strengthen the tax policy as well as the fiscal policy of Nigeria? What else are the security economic policy of the government? That would have been a question the National Assembly will ask the security advisor of the president if he was being in meeting.
Besides the reasons that the Senate has given us for, do you think there are other reasons behind that might have led to this? And the speech, not just the speech, the statements here and there by the Senate president and the other senators. I'm even more focused on the Senate president, Godswill Akpabio, because we've seen his lackadaisic approach to many national issues whenever he makes snide comments every now and then. Would we say that this has really affected them? Or is it just a statement that, okay, Nigerians are boiling right now. We are seeing protests, sparking. Do you think they're just trying to play safe? Or are they genuinely bothered by this development?
The issue is the one thing we must know about National Assembly is that most times their end talk is resolutions. But the resolution is not always that binding on the executive to executive, particularly when they investigate issues like this one they want to do. So another means of investigation to find out and advise, you get it. But the end product of whatever they are going to do is to advise the executive on how best to tackle insecurity problem in Nigeria. Now, the other aspect of your question is
that the Senate cannot do so much. They are not being activity here and there, so it seems like they're doing something about it, and it doesn't end up being an effort in futility. And
that's why I said from the beginning that it's time to review the Terrorism Act. That is where the Senate have the power to induce the advisory or resolution into how to stop activities of criminality in Nigeria. By the time they take that document and review it, whatever they want to suggest in whatever meeting they are going to be having, whatever investigation they are, is going to form the fulcrum of act clauses that will be injected in that Terrorism Act that we're going to review. Because if they are just speaking and they are just debating, and there's no framework that will guide how the security architecture of Nigeria can be well planned, well processed, well implemented, we are just ending up just doing talk shop and the rest of them. So the only way that can help them, that will make their voice count, that will make their activity count, is that they will pick up that Terrorism Act of 2013 or thereabout, or 2013 or thereabout, and review it and insert some clauses that will make it so difficult for an arrested bandit or a detained bandit to escape the clause of the law in the country. Because 2013. Now, what I'm trying to point out is that by the time they work on the law, then the law will guarantee a better security architecture for Nigeria. But if they continue to speak and if they continue to do their debate, it will not work. So the advice from us on this platform is that in as much as you are going to have that meeting on Tuesday, whatever information you are going to gather, turn it into a document that can become clauses and be inserted in the review of the Terrorism Act of 2013 and not become a law for Nigeria. Because by that, any government that come to power, any president that come to power, know that there's a working document that will help him to actualize his fight against bandits, against terrorists, or against kidnapper. You understand what I'm trying to put out. So with that, the National Assembly will be more effective and more powerful in this regard. But if they keep holding meeting, keep investigating, it will not go a long way. But if they have an act of parliament that will help them to do this, it will go a long way. Particularly the Terrorism Act of 2013. Review it in holistic way, or review it if it's possible to now change that headline of that terrorism to now 2024 Terrorism, Bandit and Kidnapping Act. You go a long way, because terrorism is in many of the functionality. So banditry is there. Even 419 could also be regarded as Terrorism Act. You get it? Then kidnapping is. If you can infuse all this together and make it a law whereby a stringent punishment is meted out, whether we are inserting capital punishment, whether we are inserting whatever punishment, but it has to be a stringent one that nobody caught as a terrorist or a bandit or a kidnapper will escape the wrath of the law of Nigeria.
Now let's talk about inclusion. I mean, I was going to, push it a little further, but let's talk about inclusion. Inclusion of people. Everybody has to put their hands, together. We need collaboration and inclusivity.
Exactly.
Just in tackling all of these complexities of our national security. At this point, it's complex because we have both food insecurity, we have insecurity, we have
physical insecurity and the rest of them.
Physical insecurity and the rest of them. Looking ahead, how do you think we can all play? What role do we all have to play? And when I say all, I mean as individuals, non-governmental organizations, the government, the CSOs, as the smallest unit of society, family, how even the religious organizations. How do we all pull in our own way to fight this? Because in the end, we're all suffering from the menace.
You still go back to the law. If we say we should just be saying it in viral means where everybody must be inclusive in fighting, no, there should be a framework that will guide everybody's rules and everybody's functionality or duties within the fighting of insecurity in the country or in the security architecture of Nigeria. That it takes us back to the Terrorism Act. It can be inserted in it. The rules of each community, the rules of the religious body, the rules of civil society, the rules of the media, particularly. Because the media is very sensitive in this aspect, but a lot of media houses are having issue complicity in the issue reporting, using colorization of particular instances in trying to make a report about some insecurity issues. The law will help us and guide everybody, including my humble self, analysts on everywhere, writing, columnists, TV. All of us will have what to take. So it now forms the fulcrum whereby whatever we want to do, we know that there is a law that is guiding us what to say, how to say it. Even the community intelligence network that I said, the law will streamline the rules of everybody one after the other. But when we don't have a guiding principle, when we don't have a law, everybody can work anything, everybody can do anything. But for me, we have to have a framework, and that framework has to be a law, and that law has to guide everybody inclusion in the security architecture and what we need to do per time, what our rules will be spelled out, particularly the media, the CSOs, the community leaders, religious body, what they'll be doing. But if this is not in a framework of law, then everybody can do anything that they like. Why do you think that jungle justice is in rampant? But when we have a law that is against jungle justice and what will be done when you arrest somebody that you consider to be a suspect, whether a bandit or a kidnapper, the laws will be there. And when you fail to adhere to the law also take a course on you, and that also spell out when we fail to act, when we know that this person or a family member, a friend has been partaking in kidnapping activities and we kept quiet, the law will tell us on what to do to the family or to the individual that be covering up for such people. But when we don't have such in place, then the rules will be too vague or too opaque, and we will not be able to understand
ability and transparency. Without these two, we could put all of the laws in place. We could do all of that. So let's switch the gears very slightly. The Senate's role in overseeing the national securities in the matter, of course, we've already established is very crucial. But then how do we assess the effectiveness of whatever whatever comes out, the outcome of this meeting, and just generally moving forward, the effectiveness of accountability and transparency? How do we bring it in? How do we hold each other accountable to be able to be sure that, hey, we need to get this done?
Exactly.
This is not something to politicize. Everybody is feeling the brunt of it.
I think it boils down to the oversight function of the National Assembly members, the Senate and the House of Reps. See, we have suffered poverty oversight on the part of the National Assembly members. What has become oversight is insertion of contract, insertion of consultancy project that has now become a thing of oversight. But we need to change that particular aspect, because if you understand what I'm trying to point out, oversight has now become business whereby you go and negotiate for what you think could come to you as individual, as a legislator, or what will come to your national or your constituency in terms of project, in terms of employment, in terms of recruitment, in terms of contract splitting, we should go off that lane. It doesn't help us. So oversight should be the actual framework that will guide National Assembly to really know whether the security chief are doing their work rightly or they are not doing their work rightly. Take for instance, if National Assembly have approved over 800 million naira for Nigerian police, or 800 billion naira for Nigerian police, and out of it 50% of that money is going for ammunition, security gadgets, helicopters and what have you, then after 6 months the money has been released and nobody goes to check whether actually they have bought all those things. But what they are interested in is that, okay, there will be 10,000 recruitment of policemen in 2 months time. I want my village people to be part of it. Oh, I want my uncle, I want my, then it will overshadow the oversight function of the National Assembly or members of those constituency or members of those committee. So what I'm trying to point out, oversight function of the National Assembly, I'll give you that power to ensure that they checkmate some of these excesses or non-excesses of the security chief and the rest of them. And not only security chief, including civilians, administration of security in Nigeria, because we have civilian agencies that are also working in consonance to ensure that we have peaceful society. But what are they also doing to checkmate or to oversight them? But when you don't oversight, transparency is absent. When you don't oversight, accountability is lost. And when you don't oversight, there is no way you can get the desired result, which is the target goal of the nation. And what is the target goal of the nation? A peaceful nation, a very harmonious nation. That's the target goal of everything that we are talking about in Nigeria. When you check the constitution of Nigeria, talking about the welfare of the people with the empowerment of the government, it's talking about how we can ensure Nigerians live peacefully, and that is just it. So without